Welcome back to the channel on another discussion in regards to the BT22 meta. Today's video explores Ariemon as the newest boss monster for Aqua and Liberator themed Digimon. With a few new cards in BT22, what are some cards that you anticipate will make their way into the deck? All men give pause before the savage power of the mighty ocean, even the greatest fisherman. Oh wait, that's a quote from Yu-Gi-Oh! Wrong franchise! The mighty power of the aquatic and deep sea Digimon are very difficult to control. Even in the hands of new players, like Mastamon, you will want to practice sequencing some of these combos before you actually bring this to your local meta. BT22 Cyber Eden isn't a set dedicated to Liberator, but it does provide a few cards to give additional support. For example, with Puyoyomon, this Digimon offers an inheritable of a Your Turn effect, in which once per turn when effects place Digimon cards, with the Aqua or Sea animal in any of their traits in this Digimon's Digivolution cards, you draw one. And while you could run this card to draw into more pieces, there's ultimately one egg that's better. With the new Sangomon, this Digimon has an optional effect that when it's played, you can place it as the bottom Digivolution card of one of your other Digimon with Aqua or Sea Animal, and then that Digimon gains blocker and can't be deleted in battle until the end of your opponent's turn. But with inheritable jamming, this card has quite the utility. Shellmon has Decode 3, meaning it can play out a level 3 if it were to leave play even with your own effects. On play, and when Digivolving, you may place one level 5 or lower Digimon card with Aqua or Sea Animal in any of its traits from your hand as any of your Digimon's bottom Digivolution card. Keep in mind, this is one of the few effects that lets you generally target any stack in play to tuck sources under it from hand, and this can game opponents in a single turn if done right. With inheritable jamming, this provides some much extra needed defense. For marinebullmon, this Digimon is one of the newest additions that allows you to warp into it from Sangomon if you have shellmon in the trash and xiangpengmon in play for a cost of 3 memory. Its inheritable is identical to the previous marinebullmon, but now with so many aquatic and liberator trait cards, this card isn't as necessary, but you can use it if you want to. Personally, while this can help you warp from a Sangomon, which means you cannot circumvent into it with effects like promo xiangpengmon or the unique emblem. As for Ryugumon, I honestly love this card for the fact that it provides some control for the deck. When Digivolving into this card, you may place one level 5 or lower Digimon card with the Aqua or Sea Animal trait in order to stun one of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers until their turn ends. Additionally, all turns, once per turn when an effect adds to this Digimon's Digivolution cards, you return one of your opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon to the bottom of the deck. Keep in mind, while this when Digivolving effect is one way to put sources under this Digimon, there are numerous ways to put more sources under it for future turns or even on your opponent's turn. So keep that in mind when you want to mess with your opponent's board, either when Digivolving in the middle of the attack, when attacking, or even end of attack. But this deck wouldn't be what it is without Ariemon herself. This level 7 boss monster can decode out a level 6 or sea trait animal Digimon when it would leave the battle area by effect. When Digivolving, you spawn out a level 3, 4, and 5 Digimon with the Aqua or Sea Animal trait without paying costs. Simultaneously, when Digivolving or when attacking, once per turn by placing one of your other Digimon as this Digimon's bottom Digivolution card, you return one of your opponent's Digimon to the bottom of the deck, and this Digimon unsuspends. Although it isn't like Imperialdramon Paladin mode, the fact that you can target any Digimon, with or without sources, makes this infinitely better. There are several ways to make this deck obscene, especially with an OTK style, but I'll let the combos do the major explanation along with the card by card. Tamer-wise, xiangpengmon returns as a tamer that floats another version of herself, and if you have no Digimon in play, you play out Sangomon without paying the cost. Its all turns effect lets you draw a card by suspending this tamer when effects add Digivolution cards to any of your Digimon with the Sea Animal or Aqua in their trait. But honestly, when playtesting this deck, you really need your xiangpengmon set up for another play. This doesn't gain you memory, which can be a major deterrent, but that unique emblem Poseidia Lagoon? Definitely worth it. For 3 memory, you can play out any Sangomon or xiangpengmon without paying cost from your hand or trash, and then place this card into the battle area. In the future, when any of your xiangpengmon suspend, delay, one of your Digimon with the Aqua or Sea Animal trait may Digivolve into an aquatic and Liberator trait Digimon in the hand with the Digivolution cost reduced by 3. Keep in mind the Digimon that is Digivolving needs either trait, but the ultimate end goal must have both aquatic and Liberator trait to work, which is why Ryugumon and Ariemon are the best options for this to do so. Ultimately, out of all these cards in BT22, all the Digimon and option card could have a place in the deck, but for me, the Tamer was definitely a hard pass. In learning the basics of this deck, while you could run Puyoyomon, the ultimate egg for this deck is going to be Bukamon from BT7. When your Digimon are played by effects, that's a memory gain there. But because you're ideally looking to build your stack with inheritables like memory gain or jamming, this is why between your level 3s and 4s, there's a nice mix of that allows you to interchange them. The best option of course going to Sangomon from BT21, because this Digimon can reduce the Digivolution cost going into a mollusk or aquatic trait by 1 memory. Your typical follow-up play here could be Unique Emblem into a Yao, because this sets up a clean Digivolution that in some cases, if this was a turn 2 play, your opponent might hit a magical second tamer, or even another Unique Emblem which could play out another Yao. But the ideal setup could take 2 to 3 turns. Now assuming you have a few of these items set up, there's a few things that could happen. Promote up, and if your opponent has a Digimon in play, you can now gain a memory off the other xiangpengmon. Digivolve Sangomon into say seadramon for just 1 memory. Pretty nice, right? Now the fun part. At 3 memory you can now Digivolve into marinebullmon and tuck the big bad of this deck huankunmon using marinebullmon's effect. And while you could also trigger additional effects, the next step is simply attacking. When you attack, you can use the Memory Fixer Yao to tuck another level 5 or lower Digimon with the Aqua or Sea Animal in its traits like another Memory Gain or Jamming. Because the Digimon was tucked into the sources, you can activate that Promo Yao's effect in which you can now Digivolve into say Ryugumon for a cost of 2 instead of 3. Ryugumon's effect now triggers, allowing you to tuck another level 5 or lower Aquatic or Sea Animal trait Digimon into the sources, meaning another shellmon or sangomon here would be very valuable. And then Ryugumon's effect would bottom deck a level 5 or lower Digimon. But wait, there's more! Because a Yaoqinglon was suspended, you can now delay the Unique Emblem in order to Digivolve Ryugumon into Ariemon for a cost of 1. While this does put your opponent to 3 memory, a series of events will now happen. Ariemon's effect will now strip a level 3, 4, and 5 out of the sources. Here you'll pull out Sangomon, Rush seadramon who can attack, and then huankunmon if you need sources out, or you need marinebullmon out for plugging another memory back into the sources before end of attack triggers. Keep in mind because of bukamon, you playing out a Digimon by effect is a memory gain. Simultaneously, because you're still in the middle of the attack, and when digivolving, your opponent cannot get into the Blast Evo timing, so now you can tuck back one of those 3 sources to unsuspend Ariemon and then bounce any Digimon in play. For potentially 2 removal, it's Value Town here. In this situation, it ultimately depends on what you're looking for. I typically do marinebullmon to tuck additional sources, like other huankunmon because these are optional effects that can trigger with each attack. Surprisingly, if you do need to, this is where you can tuck say Rush seadramon from hand under marinebullmon, because doing so means that if you were to pull back marinebullmon under Ariemon, marinebullmon will decode out seadramon and give you another rush attacker. Once you've hit security because your DP is either big enough or you have jamming, you can now gain memory from each of these inheritables, which will likely keep turn. Now you attack again, reabsorb another source via huankunmon's effect to unsuspend and gain memory. And do it again if you have ways to add more huankunmons or enough memory to digivolve over another level 4 and absorb that target. In testing, this is one of the most convoluted combos, and missequencing your effects here can cost you the game. But in regards to the deck profile, there was a lot to consider. Egg-wise, as I mentioned, sometimes you'll feel like you're running out of cards in hand because you play so many into the Digivolution sources. But for maintaining turn and potentially OTKing your opponent, the bukamon from BT7 is the best one. For level 3s, you run 12 sangomons. Why the 12 sangomons? Simple. 1 searches for Aqua, Sea Animal trait Digimon, and a card with the Liberator trait, meaning if you roll your cards right, you'll almost always have a double add. 4 for the Digivolution cost reduction, and 4 of the newest one that lets you on-play Tuck It Under for battle immunity, and Blocker. These can come up at some of the wackiest scenarios, and boy can they make blockers for you in a pinch. Alternatively, you could add Floodgates that can't be searched, or you bring in Swimmon for evade, but the 8 options at end of attack gain memory are that strong. For the level 4s, this was an interesting one. On one hand, I went with predominantly the jamming inheritable options. With Rush seadramon, this helps with being an endgame finisher, and with multiple memory fixers, you could be tucking jamming inheritals under seadramon before it collides with security, and then suck them back with huankunmon or Ariemon's effect. Shellmon is another option that decodes a level 3 out, meaning if you were to play this and marinebullmon off the Ariemon's effect, you could use marinebullmon to tuck a level 3 under shellmon so that when it's pulled back into Ariemon sources, it plays the level 3. But for the last 2 options, I just do a simple split on the tamer player shellmon with the inheritable to gain a memory, and 2 of the promo shellmons to draw cards at end of attack. I don't necessarily hate the promo shellmon because of the card draw, but I do dislike that the tuck is under this stack specifically. You'll notice that I'm not on the promo seadramon because Ariemon's effect is mandatory and will play out the seadramon before you can gift Rush, unless you have more than one level 4 in the stack. Sometimes you can achieve this, and sometimes you can't. While you do run a lot of tamers, another option you could run is the hybrid Lanamon. Level 5s is where things get a little tricky. I tried the new marinebullmon, but it honestly never came up as being effective. Instead, I just stuck with the marinebullmon that we previously had. But the secondary level 5 is going to be dedicated to a Digimon with the specific inheritable of tucking another Digimon in play to unsuspend. When you can tuck multiple of these Digimon in play, you can end the game in a single turn, since, security bombs are relatively non-existent. With huankunmon, this builds your board ever wider, and you can target any Digimon with level 3 sources. And while BT15 megaseadramon can return another Digimon based on what's tucked under it, this is a neat option for targeting your Digimon with decode to spin certain levels back. Ariemon tucked means you can decode out of level 6. Ryugumon tucked means you can decode out another level 5. But for more aggression, the EX6 megaseadramon will be super aggressive, pending you have a lot of inheritables with jamming. As for the level 6s, I mained 4 Ryugumons because these work best with the unique emblem. True, it's not the best option, but memory efficiency wise, it's one of the better ones. For a secondary level 6, I utilized xiangpengmon from BT19. This level 6 Digimon has a when digivolving effect that unsuspends one of your Digimon. Then by placing one of your other Digimon with the Aqua or Sea Animal trait as its bottom Digivolution card, you gain 3 memory. Remember, this is one cheeky way to evo for 2 memory, unsuspend, and clear more security. And considering it is a Digimon with blocker and security attack +1, it is both offensive and defensive. I also did try the first Ryugumon, but the memory cost wasn't worth it in my mind, and is more defensive on the spectrum. For the super top end, I chose to run the 4 Ariemons because they can warp from marinebullmons in the presence of xiangpengmon. That being said, if you think this is too high of a ratio, because not all the level 5s are marinebullmons, you can definitely drop this to 3. But this is the combo instigator. Option-wise, it's just 3 copies of the unique emblem Poseidia Lagoon, because I did notice that in combination with all our tamers, at times I was getting flooded with these in hand. 3 appears to be the sweet spot for the time being. You'll notice that this card you can play out sangomons from not just your hand, but trash as well. And because of this, it lets you set up xiangpengmon from hand or trash, memory fixer included. As for the tamers, I went with 3 memory fixers, because this lets you suspend mid-attack to proc your unique emblems and digivolve multiple times if needed. But other than this tamer, I used the promo Yao because it reduces Digivolution costs, while also supplying a memory gain if your opponent has a Digimon in play. In early testing I tried the new float Yao, but the issue was it provided no memory gains, and frequently I passed over through my Digivolution climb, which left my stack extremely vulnerable. But overall, this was one of the funnest blue decks I've playtested in a while, because its combos are complex and can be punishing. It's not smooth-brained like Greymon decks which just promote out and hit for game. But do be mindful that this deck has so many vulnerabilities, in particular security bombs that can render a lot of your future plays moot, because even though you decode out one body, your resources will have been expended in hand from all the tucking. Another major issue I found playing this deck was Imperial Dramon Paladin Mode Ace, because it just wrecks the deck. Source stripping everything and then leaving you with no end of attack inheritables is really rough. But generally, what are your thoughts on Ariemon, and will you be pursuing the path of Ocean Master? Let me know your thoughts on what you liked or disliked about this deck, and I'll catch you on more Digimon goodness this week. This is DIGI-PANDA, logging out.